All right, welcome everyone to the Martial Energetics Podcast. And today is your hosts, Andrew Brown and Dane Dormio. Today our main topic is going to be Chai Tea Tai Chi. What is it? What's the mission? What's it about? What's going on? Why choose the name Chai Tea Tai Chi? So, get started. How you doing, Dane?
I'm doing excellent. How are you, Andrew?
Oh, well, it's 6:30 in the morning in Poway, California. So it's okay.
Sounds like a
How
wonderful
are
time and place to be alive.
Yes, that's very true. How are you doing out there in beautiful Nepal?
I'm great, and it's 8:40 p.m. here, which is actually very close to my bedtime. So, um, I've been following the practice early to bed, early to rise.
Mm,
So, uh, it's late for me, and it's a great time and place to be alive, and I'm really glad to be here talking about this subject, which is something that I'm very passionate about.
okay. Well, good to hear. Good to hear. So, Tai Chi. Like, why did you even choose that name? Let's start with that.
Chai Tea Tai Chi. Yeah, I don't remember how exactly it came to me. It was quite a few years ago. I was I was teaching what I called Tai Chi for various reasons. Although, and this is an issue that I've grappled with over the years. Traditional Tai Chi stylists would not call what I do Tai Chi, but I think it's Tai Chi. I think Tai Chi is the most apt label that there is. Um, and the name Chai Tea Tai Chi came to me somehow. It just seemed cute and uh, and kind of funny, kind of a tongue twister. Um, and it also had has there are certain parallels with tea, um, in the sense that there are many types of
Okay.
tea. There's many varieties, and there's all kinds of different blends. So Chai Tea Tai Chi on the one hand represents a unique Tai Chi blend. It's uh, it's new in that sense, new and unique in that sense, and also that there's distinctions and gradations. There's tea, and then there's tea. There's the kind of cheapest tea you can get, and then there's the top shelf connoisseur item. Um, so
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
that's the other meaning of that.
Okay, cool. No, I like that. Okay, so it's a mix of things, and because Tai Chi can be taught by so many almost infinite teachers, and there's variations on every single teacher, everyone has their own style. That hey, this is my style of Tai Chi. I like
It's a
that.
unique flavor, unique blend, which everyone who progresses far enough, you even if you are trying as hard as you can to be exactly like your master or your teacher or your sifu or guru or whoever,
Mhm.
eventually you'll realize that your tai chi is your own. If you're Even if you're learning a
Yes,
traditional family style, eventually you'll realize your tai chi is your tai chi, and it's as unique as you are.
yes, very good point. Very good point. I say you don't practice. We say, "Oh, I'm a karateka, I'm a jujitsu player, I'm a Tai Chi player," but you're always the self player. Like I have the study of Andrew Brown martial arts. That's the
Yes,
style I have.
that's right. You're the
Even though
master
I've
of
studied
Andrew
all
Brown
this,
style.
yeah, that's the style I know, and you're the master of Dane Dormio style. No one else can
Exactly.
master that. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
no, I love that's good. It's good. Everything's unique, of course. All
Hmm.
right, so Chai Tea Tai Chi. That is a non-profit, correct?
Yeah, the way that it's evolved uh, over the years is that I I was teaching. I was teaching for quite a few years, and I was calling what I did Tai Chi, but there were a couple of recurring issues around that kept coming up. I guess one was the sort of thing we were just talking about. So sometimes people would actually say to me, what type of Tai Chi, what style of Tai Chi is this you do? I've never seen, this doesn't look like any Tai Chi I've ever seen." And of course, if you ever meet a Tai Chi person and you
Like
say,
myself.
and you say, I do Tai Chi, the 98% of the time, the next question out of their mouth is going to be, "What style?"
Yeah.
Um, and I use the term Tai Chi. I talked about this a little bit in another conversation we had, but I learned Tai Chi almost without realizing it. I went to a kung fu school to learn some new martial arts. It turned out this kung fu was based on, it was based on internal principles, but it was very informal, not in the sense of style. The Sifu actually uh, didn't really claim allegiance to any particular style. He just talked about Tai Chi in kind of the general philosophic sense. And
Mm.
so this was a school that was based on the 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 internal principles of Tai Chi and other internal martial arts, but not adherent to a particular style. And so I didn't have a style of Tai Chi that I could claim uh, allegiance to, um, and also there was a lot more to what I was teaching than. And by the way I normally answer that question now is, if somebody asks what style of Tai Chi, I just say non-denominational. That's my
That's clever. That's clever.
short answer if if I don't want to try to go into a long conversation. Um, but there was more to what I was teaching than just what formally exists in Tai Chi. Um, Although I guess to put a bit of a broader philosophical perspective on this, um, Tai Chi, the term, means the grand ultimate, or everything that is. It refers to a sort of cosmological philosophy, the essentially the philosophy, the cosmological philosophy of Taoism,
Yeah,
and
the
it
Taoist
refers to
philosophy.
a philosophical school of thought. With the martial art, the internal martial art, uh, Tai Chi Chuan has Chuan attached to it, which of course, as you know, means fist, and which is, or fighting style.
Yeah.
Um, so if we're talking about the martial art, technically Tai Chi is then short for Tai Chi Chuan, but it's what I call uh, uh, the practice of Taoism. I say I'm a practicing Taoist. Applied
Mm.
Taoism, uh, Tai Chi as a martial art, or as a path, is applied Taoism. Um, so uh, really, Tai Chi can apply to everything that you do in your life,
Yeah.
not just what you do in training. But in training, Tai Chi can really apply to anything where you are applying the principles of Taoism to your learning process. So the traditional Tai Chi is traditional Tai Chi styles in schools, by and large, are very limited in what they do, which essentially all martial arts are, all martial arts schools and styles. If there are certain things they do and there are certain things they don't do.
Sure.
And
So limited by the teacher and what they are comfortable teaching. Yeah.
and by the stylistic definitions and traditions and things
karate
like that.
guy on their ground rolling with you for a half hour.
Right.
Not gonna,
Yeah. And in jiu-jitsu class, you are on the ground rolling around for half an hour, and you're not standing up sparring and throwing punches and kicks. Are we back? Are we back?
Hello?
Are we back?
I lost everything for about 10 seconds.
Yeah, I I heard you go out.
Okay.
So by stylistic definitions and traditions, the sorts of things that happen in an Aikido class are different than the sorts of things that happen in a karate class or a jiu-jitsu class.
Yes.
This is how martial arts self-define and distinguish themselves, self-differentiate. And what's taught as traditional Tai Chi is really a pretty narrow set of activities. But the principles that underlie these activities certainly have the potential for much broader application. There's many more ways you can apply the Tai Chi principles other than inside the Tai Chi form.
Yes, definitely agree.
And so there's a realization that I had when shortly after I started practicing both internal martial arts and reality-based self-defense styles, that what the various external styles that I'd been doing for the previous 12 years up to that point, I realized they were all forms of Tai Chi, that they were just different applications of the principles. And so to me personally, at least, all martial arts are Tai Chi, really. I mean, that's, to me, it includes all of that.
It's like optimal, ideal ways to do something, because all the martial arts is like, you got Taekwondo, the foot fist way, you got Karate, the empty hand way, and Jiu-Jitsu is the gentle way, and all these different martial arts, they have their own way, and because they're all within the way of the ultimate Tao, the ultimate way, that all martial arts are encompassed by Tai Chi. Okay, I get that.
Yeah, there's different perspectives you could come at it from. The study of mastery and performance optimization, the pursuit of self, of incremental self-perfection, the principles of physics, physiology, and psychology.
Yeah. But if you don't remember, I mean, my coach talked to me a lot about this. He was a external martial artist for years and years. Very good Taekwondo, very good combative, sparring, fighting, that kind of stuff. He would just beat people down. But he got a lot of injuries, and all the best external martial artists that I've ever read about in history, they all die kind of young, like 40s, 30s, 50s maybe. But like the internal guys, they all live to like 110 or 95. And the guy who founded Aikido, he died when he was in his late 80s. So very internal styles, they tend to last a little longer than the guys who are very about developing their muscles and making their bones hard, they're just developing the weapons instead of developing the self. I see a big difference there.
Yeah. there's definitely, I mean, that's a transition that a lot of professional athletes go through. I mean, pretty much all conventional sports are things that have a certain window of viability, um,
Yeah.
and like in 20s to 30s, and then it's just not possible to participate in that activity. And Taoism or Tai Chi has the underpinnings of Taoism and and Qigong, of course, which health, wellness, longevity
Mm-hmm.
are
Mm-hmm.
big components of that. Um, so
All right. Well, I wanted
the
to move on to another topic if you're ready.
let me see. Well, you had asked about um, uh, what uh, what was the specific question you asked? I think I was angling towards something related to that.
I just really wanted a quick review of what is Tai Chi, what is the your knowledge, and what do you teach from Tai Chi? And so I think we got that. I think we can
Okay,
move
yeah,
on.
and actually, I do remember where I was going, which was that there's
Okay, sorry.
um, there's a lot of I came to realize there's a lot of what I teach that is um, isn't isn't conveyed by the um, conventional notions of Tai Chi. So
Mm,
people look at it, traditional Tai Chi people certainly look at it and say, "Oh, that's not Tai Chi," um, and at a certain point, I had a realization that my system was really larger, even larger than that, and I I've kind of faced this conundrum for a while. What do I call this? And that was where the system of martial energetics arose, which we've talked about in
mm,
another
okay.
conversation, which encompasses all this stuff from Tai Chi, but also uh, other things like specifically the um, where does the reality-based self-defense stuff fit into Tai Chi? You can kind of make it fit, but really it's a whole nother approach, and these two things are tied together. The interrelated study of prowess and violence are tied together in martial energetics, and Tai Chi pretty much encompasses the entire study of prowess, health, wellness, longevity, performance enhancement. But then there's also the study of violence, the physics, physiology, and psychology of violence and crime, which is the other aspect of martial energetics. So Chai Tea Tai Chi, as it's really in terms of its relation to martial energetics. Martial energetics really is the system underlying Chai Tea Tai Chi, and Chai Tea Tai Chi is uh, is the health, wellness, longevity, performance enhancement component of martial energetics, at least from the perspective of the system and the curriculum, and what's actually included in either system.
Mm, okay. All right. So that's great overview of Tai Chi. So so this is a nonprofit. So from what I understand, pretty much all nonprofits have a mission statement. So why don't you tell me what the mission of Chai Tea Tai Chi is?
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up, and that's actually another distinction that that Chai Tea Tai Chi and martial energetics as two different but related systems uh, have, which is that martial energetics is a for-profit business that teaches all aspects of mind-body mastery and self-defense, um, including health, wellness, longevity, performance enhancement, as well as self-defense, personal protection, the study of crime and violence, and how to avoid legal, ethical, um, psychological, medical consequences of violence, all those um, other self-defense related topics. Um, And Chai Tea Tai Chi is also, as an organization, as a nonprofit, is dedicated to sharing and teaching the skills of mind-body mastery, with more of an emphasis on health, wellness, longevity, and performance enhancement, although it also does include the self-defense skills and components. But the emphasis is on optimizing individuals, optimizing people, and in particular, bringing the tools of mind-body mastery to those who need them and who can benefit from them the most, which includes the various types of underprivileged populations that exist.
Of course.
And there have been lots of instances and studies involving the various types of mind-body mastery tools for the prison population, the homeless population, the mentally ill, seniors and elderly people, at-risk youth, disabled, handicapped people, people with physical and mental disabilities, or degenerative diseases of various kinds.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've only seen great benefits of teaching Tai Chi to the elderly. They get amazing response to Tai Chi, and so teaching to everyone around the world, no matter what their situation, it's only a benefit. It's only a benefit. So,
yeah,
great point.
And there's a saying that I heard recently. Trying to think of where it was, something like, if you could. Oh yeah, I remember Bill Douglas said this when I interviewed him. He said, if you could, it's been shown to have this and this effect on disease states, and if you could bottle this and sell it, the FDA would be all over it. But since you can't, it's just it's a form of medication that you can apply, that anyone can apply for themselves, and so realistically, anybody can benefit from mind-body mastery tools, body regulation, breath regulation, mind regulation, etc. And underserved populations are people who really stand to benefit a lot in terms of have a lot of potential, a lot of room for improvement in their quality of life, and they are not likely to. They're also some of the people who are least likely to have access to these tools due to economic circumstance or geographical circumstance, or personal limitations, or whatever reasons. So the mission of Chai Tea Tai Chi, which you asked about, is to help transform the world through teaching the skills of mind-body mastery. The massively transformative purpose behind this movement and this organization is to see 1 billion people on the planet all practicing Qigong or some form of mind-body mastery practice, integrated as a regular part of their life. That's what gets me up every morning.
That's your
excited
mission.
to do my work.
That's a good mission. You're never going to run out of work. That's for true. That is definitely true. All right. So you are currently in Nepal, and you are teaching children martial arts. So what do you teach these kids? Like, what is the first thing that you try to teach kids who are seriously in need of self-defense?
That's a great question. The short answer is, I teach kids the same thing I teach adults. The only thing that is different maybe is the presentation. But it's the same set of skills, of mind-body mastery skills. And something else I'll mention too is that to put this in context, the reason that I'm in Nepal is because this is one of the places on the planet where there is the greatest need for tools of self-transformation. Just from a basic fundamental level, this is a place where there's very deep poverty, that has deep historic roots and is very entrenched. And what Tai Chi and Qigong and mind-body mastery tools and individual self-optimization has to do with that is that the people and the environment, it's not that one is primary. Some people would argue, oh, the people create their environment and everybody has autonomy and agency and can influence their circumstances. And some people would argue that the environment limits what people limits the potential that people are able to develop and has a primary influence over them from the moment of conception onwards. I look at it as the people in the environment as a co-evolving system where each influences the other. So, so the more the environment is optimized, the more the individuals can be optimized, and the more the individuals are optimized, the more they will optimize their environment. So, this is part of the global transformation that's happening from poverty and scarcity and lack and hostility and aggression into abundance and empathy and peace and care. So the more tools that individuals have to optimize their existence, optimize their well-being, their mind, their body, their emotions, their energy, the faster they'll be able to transform their environment from the inside out. And this is also a place where there really isn't that much of that kind of thing. I was actually very surprised that a lot of people here have never even heard of Tai Chi. There really is a shortage of good martial arts teachers in this country. Speaking of which, anybody who wants to come, there's a need here. There are commercialized. There are a number of pretty big commercialized martial arts schools: Taekwondo, Muay Thai, boxing, things of that nature. Sport. They're sporting type things, and people here even the usual term for a martial artist is a martial arts player. It's kind of just another sport, and those sporting styles are really all that exists here, all that people have in mind. There is not really a concept of internal martial arts for health, wellness, and longevity and performance enhancement, and there's also really not a concept of reality-based self-defense.
Wow. Interesting.
So this is a place where there's a need, where there's an opportunity to shine light into one of the darkest corners. And another thing here is there are a lot of orphans, and one factor that's related to this is something that probably the thing that a lot of people know about Nepal for is there was a major earthquake here a little over 2 years ago that was really destructive and of lives and of property. And immediately afterwards, a large amount of aid money flowed into the country, most of which was squandered in ineffective ways. But the underlying situation here has changed very little. You could say that the earthquake exacerbated the poverty that people were already living in, and the poverty has exacerbated the effects of the earthquake. So in living where you do, and where I have for a long time in Southern California, where we're kind of on the cutting edge of uh, of human
Everything.
thought, and things are moving really fast. Technology and society and politics are all rapidly evolving. It's a real contrast being here, where and this is common in all environments, I think, where there's really deep poverty. There's not this sense of progress and improvement and working to better yourself in your life and your environment. There's this sense that just things kind of are just the way they are because they are, and you just got to deal with it.
Everything's fate, and
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
sisters cut the string whenever that comes along.
Yeah. There's a sense of life. You just kind of ride along in life, but there's not the sense that anything is possible, and you actually have choice about the direction your life takes, and you can direct your own growth and evolution. So this is what I really want to bring to people all over the world, especially the people who need it the most, which is for orphans living in poverty are a group that's particularly at risk, and in a lot of ways. We in the U.S. and in other developed countries, we think of at-risk youth as being at risk of turning to a life of crime or addiction. Here, in Nepal particularly, and in many other areas where there's deep poverty and historical causes for this sort of thing, human abduction, or human trafficking, child abduction are very real things. So these are kids that are they're growing up in poverty without biological family, and they're at risk in all these socioeconomic ways. They're also at risk for violent crime, for being victims of violent crime. So that's that to me makes this need all that much more pressing.
Okay. Yeah, that's very true. So
But you asked
these kids,
what do you teach them? The first thing, the very first thing, the first thing you teach them.
So what is that? What is the first thing? Like the first thing I teach everyone is how to breathe. What's the first thing you teach these kids?
The very first thing, the most important thing is, and this is pretty general, is learning how to learn.
Oh, well, yeah, that's definitely important.
Because
that's what college is for. Tell me college.
Because if you learn how to learn, then you can learn anything. And if you can learn anything, then you can do anything. So there are 3 rules of training that are actually the first thing that I teach. The 3 rules of training are: number 1, nobody gets hurt.
Okay.
Everything is safe and careful, and we're working together to help each other learn. We're working together and cooperating to help each other learn. We're not competing or squabbling or fighting or picking on each other. We're not trying to win. And rule number two is everybody learns. Everybody is in class in order to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to learn, you have to watch and listen and pay attention. And then rule number three is everybody has fun. As long as we're all being safe and we're all learning, then we all get to have a lot of fun. And that's just as important as the first two rules, although being safe comes first, learning comes second, and then having fun comes third, because the safer you are and the more you learn, the more fun you can have.
Yes. Yeah, it's no fun when you break your leg.
That's right.
No fun.
That's right.
Done.
And
Good.
and just something to say a little more specific about learning how to learn, is I look at it through the lens of I'm teaching self-development and self-defense through martial arts. Martial arts is kind of the vehicle for teaching self-development and self-defense. And so the program that I follow is kind of has two phases, similar to the way that martial energetics can be analyzed as a study of prowess and violence. Kid Smart is a program that teaches kids how to use their bodies and minds efficiently and effectively for everything they do. It teaches kids how to direct their focus and concentration to set and achieve goals. And it teaches them how to stay fit and healthy for their whole lives. These are the goals of this part of the program. And it's this is the self-development component. The self-defense component, which is called Kid Safe. So there's Kid Smart and Kid Safe. Kid Safe teaches kids how to use their bodies safely in all activities, whatever they're doing, playing, roughhousing, anything they do, and to identify and avoid potentially dangerous situations. It teaches nonviolent conflict resolution skills, that we don't settle disputes by fighting, and it teaches cooperation and fair play to help and care for each other. So those are the general principles of what martial arts are used as a vehicle to convey.
Okay, cool. So moving on from that, I want to know, how do you make kids defend themselves? How do you get them to switch from that thing in their head where they say, everything's okay, I'm safe, to, oh my God, nothing's okay, I'm in danger right now, and I have to do everything I have to do to survive this moment?
Yeah. So how do you make kids
get
able
kids
to defend themselves?
Understand that? Yeah, that's like a tough concept. A lot of people, even adults, have trouble getting that idea in their head. So how do you get kids to do that?
Yeah, well, so the short answer is very carefully. But yeah, it is actually a challenge for adults, and maybe even just as much for adults, maybe even more for adults. Actually, part of it is it's actually about removing social conditioning, which kids have less of.
That's a good point.
But so with and this is the self-defense as well as the self-development, like the innate curiosity and desire to grow and learn and do things. What I've said before about Tai Chi is a matter of removing social conditioning, and that's actually easier to do sometimes with kids. And this is true for self-defense as well, because we are a predatory species, therefore we have or at least we're an omnivorous species, therefore we have the innate reward circuitry for predation. And this is this is the switch that needs to be flipped in a self-defense situation. I talk about predator-prey behavior as a kind of a general biological concept. There's predator behavior and there's prey behavior. Predators hunt, stalk, and ambush, and prey flees and freezes and defends. In any predatory type situation between animals, whether they're members of the same species or members of different species, the one that is acting like a predator is the one that's doing the violence, and the one that's acting like prey is the one that's receiving violence. So the biggest distinction, the biggest switch to flip is going from defensive prey-like behavior to going to offensive predator-like behavior. And that means that, for example, to make it very concrete, a very simple exercise, one of the simplest self-defense exercises that I do with kids is I'll do it with them first to show them. I'll grab them by the arm or by the hair or the neck or by the clothes somewhere. I just grab them somewhere, and then I show them how to access a target on my body. And when they appropriately access the target, I then give them the reaction they would get from that target. So for example, I might grab the kid around the throat and pull them in to choke them, and then I show them how to put their thumb on my eyeball and press. And when they do that, I react the way that I would react if they had done it very hard and very fast, exactly the same way. So what this is a very important, and it's very simple mechanically and conceptually. It's somebody grabs you, you put your thumb in their eye, no big deal, right? But
yeah, no big deal. Done.
But it's actually a very huge shift from what is somewhat instinctive and also very largely conditioned defensive type of behavior, which is what people often do if they're being choked. If somebody grabs you around the neck with their hands or with their arm, what people often do is grab the hand or the arm that's around their neck, which is fundamentally defensive, and grab the arm, try to pull it off. Well, that doesn't work if you're an 8-year-old kid and you're being grabbed by a 36-year-old man.
Yeah,
and,
definitely not.
And I show them that. I show them, and when they do this, oftentimes I'll grab them. The first thing they'll do is try to pull the arm off or defend against what's happening. And then I show them it doesn't work. And then I show them they can put their thumb in my eye and press, and I show them what happens when they do that, and they see that does work. If you were going to victimize any person, because it's violent crime and predation in general is always bigger, faster, stronger versus smaller, weaker, slower. It always is, no matter who you are, whether you're a little old lady or a young man in his prime or a teenage girl. It's always going to be somebody bigger, faster, stronger than you.
It's rare for someone smaller than you to come at you like they're trying to assault you.
Well,
it's rare.
I would even go so far as to say it's virtually unheard of. If somebody it's based on the nature of violent crime, there's some advantage, maybe whether they have a firearm or an edged weapon or something. There's going to be some advantage, because otherwise it just
doesn't make sense to be a predator if you don't have an advantage. You have to have an advantage, or you're not really a predator. Because say, okay, let's use myself as an example. I'm 6'1", 210 pounds. If a 150-pound man without any weapons challenges me, I'm going to be very puzzled. And if they try to use force on me, I'm going to be very confused of what is happening right now, because I would never expect that.
Yeah, well, it's I do want to make the distinction between challenging and violent crime or predatory behavior.
Social, yeah, okay, I guess,
This,
yeah,
so
social violence versus.
I can actually, there's actually an example that that illustrates this, that is really clearly, that I heard from a teacher who in his young days, who frequented a certain bar where there was a bouncer who was a guy like 260 pounds, 260, trained martial artist, all that. And one night, this one guy they'd never seen before just wouldn't leave. He'd been sitting at the bar by himself, sipping whiskey all evening, and when it's time to close, he doesn't move. And so the bouncer moves up on him, and having a huge size advantage, a huge fitness advantage, and the guy, like the bouncer gets like close, so there's like body to body contact, and the guy just reaches down in his boot, pulls out a knife, and stabs him in the femoral artery, and then takes off.
Oh my God!
When it's
Wow, that would be horrible.
size.
That would be like such a surprise.
My point is that the distinction between the predatory behavior does not involve a challenge. With social violence does. So I'm talking outside the realm of social violence. Predatory behavior, if somebody is preying on another person, they at least believe that they have a way to make the job easy. So
yeah.
So the flipping the switch from, so that was just to say that it's always, whether you're working with kids or adults or anybody, it's always, you have to prepare to deal with bigger, faster, stronger, multiple people armed with deadly intent, because that's the universal scenario in self-defense. That is pretty much by definition. If it's not that, it's not a self-defense situation. It's social violence, or some kind of mutual combat situation. But those are the universal factors for adequate self-defense training. Those are the factors that have to be looked at. And so this is true not just with kids, but with anybody. Acting defensively, if somebody's stabbing you, trying to stop the knife or block the knife, or somebody's punching you, trying to block the punch, doesn't work against bigger, faster, stronger with deadly intent. If you block one attack, it'll be followed by another one. If you probably can't just grab onto them and overpower them, because if you could, it wouldn't be a predatory situation. You wouldn't have been targeted. So these kind of defensive things that people tend to do, backing up, leaning backwards, pulling back, covering up, they make you a very easy target. If I grab onto a kid and the kid like tenses up and tries to cover, that's great. That kid is really easy to just pick up and carry off.
I see.
The sort of instinctive defensive behaviors actually make us more vulnerable to attack. Instead of, we turn away so we can't see the threat. We cover up, say, maybe our face and head and neck, but then we leave other targets exposed.
Of course.
We curl up into a ball, but that just makes us easier to control and manipulate. We put our arms up to block, but that just gives the other person something to grab onto. So flipping the switch, going from defensive behavior, cowering type of behavior, to finding a target and accessing it and injuring it is the major flip to switch. And with kids, the presentation, I said that the presentation is different with kids and adults. With kids are mostly kinesthetic and very little intellectual. Adults are much more intellectual and can take things in intellectually. Kids really can't and don't really need to take things in intellectually so much as they do kinesthetically. You can spend 10 minutes explaining something to a kid, trying to explain something to a kid, and probably have them not get it, or you can spend 2 minutes showing them and have them get it.
Yeah, very true.
And not in a way that they could explain it, but in a way that they could show it to another kid. And this, and then what's very important about that is that they realize what won't work. You can't kind of let something work for them as a way to encourage them, if it isn't physically and physiologically and psychologically valid. That would be that would be counter effective and actually dangerous if you're dealing with kids that actually are at risk for being targets of violent crime. So what you have to do is stay accurate within the realm of physics, physiology, and psychology, but work at an intensity that allows them to be successful. And this goes hand in hand with safety, because kids do everything you do. They don't listen to what you say. They watch what you do, and they follow it very closely. So in order to be safe, when working with kids, you have to demonstrate extreme care and safety and control, which is the same thing as precision and accuracy, which actually keeps us within the realm of physics, accurate physics and physiology. But you have to show that you're being precise and accurate while being extremely careful. And that means that you are working at an intensity that it's a learnable challenge for your partner. You're not trying to beat your partner or making it so that they can't win or making it so that they can't make what they're trying to do work. You do it in a way that they can make it work. So if I grab a kid by the neck and choke them, I let them breathe, but I clamp down so they can't move, so they realize they have to do something. Are we back?
Hello?
Are we back?
Yeah, we're back.
Okay, it looks like it's still recording.
Yeah, I lost you. I lost you right around. Oh, well, it doesn't have recording on. Okay, yours is recording.
Yeah, it says it's still recording. So I think the last thing that I said was,
okay,
it's a learnable challenge. Yeah, a learnable challenge.
Learnable challenge.
It has to be within the realm of physics and physiology and accurate, but at an intensity that they are able to experience success. So if I'm choking a kid, I grab them by the throat and I hold on, I clamp down in a way that they can't move, and they realize they can't get out, they can't pull my hands off. But I allow them to breathe and take as much time as they need to figure out how to access a target. And then when they successfully access that target, I give them the reaction. So in other words, they have to have the experience of being successful. If they have the experience of being overpowered and not being able to do anything about it, then that's what will get imprinted. That's what they'll train. But if they have the experience of being in a bad situation or a difficult situation and successfully fighting their way out of it, then that is what they will imprint.
No, I love that, because one of the big problems I had with martial arts is the students helping each other. And in Wing Chun, this happened a lot, where people would do their chain punches, but they were at a distance where they would never, ever make contact. And I was like, what's the point of this punch? Why are we even bothering throwing punches with each other? And so there's no defense here. There's no practical teaching. There's no practical learning going on. You're just learning like a feeling of how to punch and a feeling of how to like touch someone's hand, but there's no danger. Even if you completely mess up, there was no danger whatsoever to yourself. Even during that, it would be a face contact, just a minor face contact, but they wouldn't even put you in that much danger because I don't know what they did, why they taught like that.
Right. Well, it's inaccurate physics, physiology, and psychology, and it is the sort of thing that's very endemic in martial arts.
Traditional martial arts.
Yeah, and also traditional and commercialized martial arts, especially, and also the opposite. The opposite drawback is pretty endemic too, that the person is not given a chance to be successful. That a lot of people will do push hands with somebody where they just dominate the person totally, and that person that they're training with doesn't ever get the chance to have the experience of successfully keeping their balance and keeping their structure intact. So it provides an ego boost for the person who's dominating the other person, but it but it doesn't help the person on the receiving end to learn and improve their skill. So ultimately, I mean, there's no real skill development happening on either side with that kind of training. So that's the tightrope that really has to be walked, that you're accurate with your physics, physiology, and psychology, and you also allow for the person to have the experience of being successful. And it's really not that hard. It's actually pretty easy when you get the hang of it. It's a matter of going slow and controlled. And it's, for me, I say it's really easy. It's really easy for me. I have practiced a lot, but for a lot of people, just like slowing down and not trying to win, but just focusing on modeling the physics and physiology, and just focusing on simulating different things, seeing what would happen, learning from the results, is something that does take a lot of practice. But it's definitely very simple in principle. You just go slowly and with enough control that it's both very safe and very learnable, while still being accurate and realistic.
Cool. All right. Well, I think that's all the questions I have about Chai Tea Tai Chi today, unless you have anything you wanted to add.
Well, actually, you're doing some volunteer teaching of your own.
Yes, I am. I teach Tai Chi, just like you do, except for instead of focusing so much on the martial arts, I'm focusing a lot more on the health side and on the solo practice, and just like the sensitivity and the breathing, just getting people to be healthy and happy and develop their balance. That's my focus right now, because most of my students are not in dire need of self-defense. They're more in dire need of health benefit.
Yeah, so you are teaching
the world that way.
right, much more of a first world set of problems. You're teaching in San Diego right now at the San Diego Chinese Historical Museum. So,
yes.
So who comes to those classes? What kind of people?
So I get a lot of 40-plus-year-old individuals. A few, I'd say, it leans heavily towards the 40 to 60-year-old range. I have a few 60 pluses, but for the most part, 40 to 60. And I have a few younger people as well, but for the most part, it's that 40 to 60 range. It's people who, oh, yeah, my back's injured. Oh, I got like a knee thing. And I hurt my hip a few years ago. I hurt my shoulder a few years ago. And just nothing ever helped me. And so they're finally realizing that, physically working out that joint, physically working out that muscle is actually better than just taking pain pills. It's better than just sitting on a chair and nursing it and having an ice pack and some topical creams. You need to do more than that to really heal an injury. So these people, they figure that out, and they're coming out, and the teacher appears when the student is ready. Because if the student doesn't go seek, you'll never find a teacher. So they come and they find someone who knows a little bit about physiology and a little bit about how to make the joints heal through breath techniques and through just being balanced and through stretching. There's all these basic things my teachers taught to me for years and years and years that really made my health skyrocket. And I have no real injuries. I have no real weaknesses in my body, thanks to all this training my teachers gave me. And so I'm just trying to share what little nuggets I can and let people find the health and wellness that they can find. Everyone can find it. It just takes effort. It takes wanting to.
Yeah, and it's really great to be just sharing that with the community. It sounds like the people who are coming are kind of the traditional crowd of people who are seeking out Tai Chi, people who are have some kind of health challenge they're working to overcome, or they're just at a stage in their life where they're becoming more health conscious. And
yes.
Are there a lot of experienced Tai Chi people who come, or is it mostly beginners?
Oh, that's a good question. I've had a few people that say, "Oh, I do Tai Chi here," or "I used to do Tai Chi," but I'd say at least 60%, 70% have very little preconceptions about what Tai Chi is, and they have very little training in any formal setting. So I'm getting a lot of fresh students. So people that know so little that the first thing I have to teach, hey, you got to learn how to breathe. You got to learn how to breathe in your nose, let your belly expand, and then exhale through your nose. And that's the first thing I teach every single class. Even if it's returning students, I say, hey, let's just do our breathing for about 10 full breaths. It'll take us maybe 2 minutes. And we practice our meditation. We practice our breathing at the same time. It's easy. And people love it. I get a lot of people who as soon as they do the first meditation, I ask, hey, was that anyone's first meditation ever? And I get at least 3 people will raise their hand. It's very often, very, very consistent. Yeah, I love that.
That is great. Yeah. Just all talking about getting people to meditate, there's definitely that's a potentially very deep subject, but it's huge. So something else I'm curious about, what has your experience been? You're following the martial energetics curriculum, which is not a traditional Tai Chi curriculum. It's more principles based, and has more of an emphasis on spontaneity than traditional Tai Chi does. What has your experience been teaching that way, teaching for more of a principle-centered approach rather than an approach that's centered around forms and techniques?
It's really opened me up to a lot of different concepts. And one of the things I found really great about this is just going back and teaching the most basic class I could teach and just doing it over and over and coming up with a good pattern and, hearing the same questions over and over and having the people come to me with the same concerns. So I've learned to kind of play to those issues. But at the same time, I kind of go in there spontaneous, and I have no real plan for what's going to happen other than I want to make sure that when these people leave this class that they can do at least 3 of these things. So I teach maybe 8 to 10 different skills, different just quick overviews. And by the end of the class, if they got 3 of them, I'm really happy, because I really just want them to know how to breathe and to know how to find their balance and how to meditate. If they can do those things, that's a successful class to me. And so the spontaneity thing comes up because these people don't know anything. They don't know, and I don't know what they're going to know. And so I have to approach every student cautiously, uniquely, and I can't force them into any mold that I want to put them into. And so I, like you said, I learned the traditional style. The first day of my class, my teacher was teaching me forms. Very first thing she taught me is the opening pagoda, the Qisha, where in my classes, they don't even learn Qisha for probably, they'd have to be with me for at least 3-4 hours before I would teach them any single traditional technique. Mm. Yeah. So that's been a big change, because I used to teach like my teacher taught me, because you teach just the way you learn, and you teaching me how to start with principles first and go with the very basic stuff, make sure they can handle what I'm going to throw at them. That's important. Very important.
That is really, really great to hear, and really encouraging. It says a lot about going back to basics. My Sifu, Rich, said, there is no advanced Kung Fu.
Yeah, I like that.
And also the coming at it from the perspective of performing a service and wanting just whatever time you have with that person, you want them to get something, and those 3 things, how to stand, how to breathe, and how to concentrate are really huge.
Yeah.
And it's it's actually very resonates a lot with something that Bill Douglas said. Bill Douglas, the founder and global organizer of World Tai Chi Day, who I interviewed a couple weeks ago. He actually said exactly that, about that he started out teaching in the traditional way that he had learned, and eventually he came to a place where every time he teaches, he pretty much goes into the class a blank slate and just allows whatever is in the group energy field to arise. Just having no preconceived notions. Going into class with a totally empty and clear mind.
No curriculum. That's basically what we're doing. So, all of my college professors, when they come into class, they had their notes and they had a curriculum, and they knew exactly what they were going to teach. It's very rare to do that in Tai Chi for me. Now, I used to kind of come in like, oh, we're going to do Yang 10 today. We're going to do Yang 24 today. And I would start the class, and it's like, this is what we're learning. So we start with the first technique and then just go. But yeah, I'm changing to, I love basics class, because I remember a long time ago, a judge competing in, he came up to me and said, you know what you need to do after every single week? You need 1 hour of just pure basics. All you're going to do is pure basics. You're just going to play with your posture. You're going to do your breathing. You're going to do your most fundamental techniques over and over for a whole hour every week. You have to do that. And then in 5 years, you'll come back and you'll get a gold. That was basically what he told me. And I said, oh, okay. So then every week after that, I've been doing at least 1 hour of basics during the whole week. So now I get to teach a whole hour of basics, and I'm constantly practicing the basics. So everything reminds you of what you need to do.
Yeah, that's a great thing about teaching too, the way that it anchors in your own practice. That's why teaching is a huge emphasis in martial energetics generally, and in Tai Chi, that it's not that you go for years and then finally you become a master, then finally you're perfect, and then finally you're qualified to teach. It's
Yeah.
part of
Yes.
what
Yes.
brings
Very
you
true.
along.
Yeah. One of the problems we have in society is they have this old saying, if those who can't do teach. And I mean, yeah, that's true in some aspects, but I feel like if you really want to do something, if you really want to understand it, you have to teach it. If you can't teach it to someone else, then do you really understand it? If you can't explain the most fundamental concepts of this thing, do you really think you have a grasp on it? You need to be able to impart your own knowledge, or you'll never review your own knowledge, and you won't find the deeper truth or the deeper meaning within that thing your teacher once told you 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and you barely remember. But then when you're teaching someone, it just clicks and you're like, oh, my old teacher once said this about that. And then that's what this means now. Now that I'm an adult, now that I've learned a lot more about this whole skill set, now I understand those old sayings. Now I understand these little pithy statements that I didn't get when the first time I heard them. And you only get that with experience, because like you've probably read the Tao Te Ching when you were 22 or early in your teens, and we're just like, what the hell did that just say? I don't understand anything. But then you go practice Kung Fu and Tai Chi and learn about Taoism, and then talk to a bunch of people and learn philosophy a little bit, and you come back and you read it again when you're 30, and you're like, oh, I get it. That was what happened to me. That was because I was like, I read the Book of Five Rings, I read the Art of War, I read the Tao Te Ching when I was 20, 22. I had no idea. I didn't understand anything what it was saying. It was just telling you stuff. I'm like, oh, okay. I guess that's true. Sure. I don't know. That sounds weird. I wouldn't put it that way. But now I get it. And it takes time. It takes a lot of time and a lot of effort.
Yeah, my experience with the Tao Te Ching does parallel that. I first read it as around age 13 or 14, and it was a bunch of gobbledygook. But then when I read it at age 22, shortly after starting to study internal martial arts, it had a whole it was a whole different experience at that time. I want to speak to the something pretty close to what you said, that not coming in with you use the word curriculum. I would use the word agenda, because actually martial energetics has a curriculum. It's not a linear curriculum that it's an adaptive evolutionary principle based curriculum. But I actually think of it as it's kind of like a sphere. In order to cover a sphere, if you're going to paint a sphere, you can start anywhere and just work outwards, and eventually you'll get the whole thing covered. But it is a kind of a unified, and it doesn't have edges, but it is finite, and it's kind of a unified field, conceptual field. But coming to class without an agenda, or at least with a very loose agenda. Maybe you have an idea. I think I'd like to do this today, and this is actually what I do with the kids, because it's sometimes some of them are there, sometimes some of them aren't there, and I want to make sure I cover everything, but I can't be too controlled or too rigid about it. So I just have kind of a checklist, and I have some idea of what I want to do. If I end up doing that, great. If I get there though, and they're just not, it's not the right place for that, and I feel they want to do something else, or I feel the energy is somewhere else, then that's where I follow it. And it's really a lesson that I've learned over and over in various ways, is you have to meet students where they are, and this is students generally, adults or kids any age. You have to meet them where they are, and kind of lead them from there. So whether it's a single student or whether it's a group, you have to interface with them from where they're coming from. So I'm really glad to hear that you are having great results with this exploratory, experimental kind of teaching approach, and all the breakthroughs you're having with that. That's really encouraging. I'm sure that your students are getting a lot from it too.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So maybe next time, actually, it'll be your turn to be on the hot seat, and I'll interview you because I know you have a really extensive background in martial arts as well as an active mental life. So um, we can plan to do that for our next conversation.
All right, sounds great, Dane. So yeah, I think we've covered everything I wanted to ask, and I think you just asked the good questions. So I think we're done for the day.
Awesome.
So, all right, I gotta get going. So you have a good night, get some rest, and have fun in the morning with your kids. And I will see you. Oh, actually, well, we'll talk in 24 hours. But yeah, we'll
Yeah,
see each other next time on the
I'll
Martial Energetics
definitely.
podcast.
Thank you. I'll definitely have a great night and a great morning, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.
All right, man. Bye. Talk
Bye.
to you later.